I discovered something that might shock you. It is possible to gain money, fame, and power, and still be a failure. Yes, you heard me right. I have seen people with fortunes enough to support entire generations, yet unable to sustain their own peace. And the reason? They built on sand. That's when I learned, and never forgot, the most valuable secret a person can carry: God first. Many lives collapse not because of a lack of talent or hard work, but because they build on a fragile foundation, often invisible to the eye. It's like erecting a huge building on sand, impressive from the outside, but destined to crumble at the first storm inside. I have seen people who had everything society applauds: luxury cars, mansions, international trips, headlines in newspapers, and yet they carried a silent emptiness that no achievement could fill. The root of that emptiness was always the same: the absence of a solid spiritual base. I learned that the human mind is capable of creating, planning, attracting opportunities, and shaping its own destiny. But without clear spiritual direction, this power becomes dangerous. It's like giving a ship without a rudder to a captain who only thinks about speed. He may move fast, but without a defined course, any wrong current will lead him to rocks and shipwreck. That's why I say without hesitation that even the most powerful thought must be anchored in something greater than the ego itself. Many chase goals they did not choose out of conviction but due to external pressure. They work overtime not because they want to, but because they fear falling behind. They go into debt to maintain a standard that doesn't match their reality. And deep down, they feel a constant unease, as if something is always out of place. Have you felt that? Have you noticed that even when you achieve something you deeply wanted, the satisfaction lasted less than you expected? This happens because when God is not at the center, everything we build quickly loses its flavor. I myself have been caught in this trap. Early in my journey, when I began to reap results and recognition, I realized I was being guided more by others' approval than by my own essence. That's when I understood I needed to reverse the order: God first, then everything else. And something curious happened: my priorities began to reorganize naturally. What once seemed urgent stopped enslaving me. What I used to do to please others, I started doing with purpose. Decisions became clearer. This alignment changes everything. When God is first, you stop begging for acceptance. You learn to say no without fear. You recognize opportunities that bring peace, even if they are not the brightest in the world's eyes. And interestingly, this reflects in all areas. In finances, you stop seeking quick gains and begin building wealth consistently. In health, you care for your body not out of vanity but because you understand it as a tool to fulfill your mission. In relationships, you learn to value those who add to your life and distance yourself from those who drain your strength. Today, when I observe people who have prospered solidly, I notice they all share one characteristic: a firm foundation that does not shake in the face of losses, crises, or others' opinions. And, curiously, I also see the opposite: people who achieved much but collapsed completely when they lost just one thing. This proves that true wealth is not in what we accumulate but in what remains when everything else is taken away. So, if you want to grow sustainably, the first question is not what do I want to achieve, but on what am I building? Because if the foundation is God, every step you take will be secure. And when the wind blows, and it will blow, you will not fall because it is not just your own strength holding up the structure. Now I ask you, are you really building your life with God at the center, or are you just fitting Him into the leftover spaces after everything else goes wrong? Think about this sincerely, because this answer can change the course of the next years of your life. Many believe that prosperity comes only through constant movement, working more and more, piling up tasks, saying yes to everything and everyone. But I learned that often true progress comes when we stop. When we silence the noise around us and inside us. The world wants to convince you that silence is a waste of time, but I discovered that it is precisely in silence that the most important answers arise. There was a moment in my life when an offer worth about 1 million euros was placed on my desk. The figures were tempting, the people involved influential, and everyone around insisted I accept immediately before the opportunity evaporated. But inside me, there was discomfort. It was not fear, it was a pause. A silence that asked me to wait. I decided to listen. At the time, some called me crazy for letting such a great chance slip away. Months later, the deal turned out to be a disaster that dragged investors into bankruptcy. That's when I understood definitively, silence can save years of work, money, and even one's own peace. Today, science confirms what experience already taught me. Behavioral psychology studies show that decisions made under high emotional pressure are about 70% more likely to cause regret. This happens because under anxiety, our mind shuts off subtle information and signals that could change the choice. When you become silent and seek God's presence before acting, your perception expands, and what once seemed urgent loses the weight of haste. Putting God at the center also means learning to wait with purpose. It means understanding that not every silence means absence, often, it is preparation. There are periods in life when everything seems to be at a standstill. You pray, strive, try, but see no results. It is natural to feel frustrated because we are conditioned to believe visible movement equals progress. Yet, I have seen countless cases, including my own, in which the greatest turning point came after a silent phase. God does not operate according to the logic of haste, He works in perfect timing, and silence is an essential part of that process. Perhaps you are currently in such a moment. Maybe the doors you were expecting did not open, the ventures you planned did not advance, and even your prayers seem unanswered. But what if this pause is God's way of sharpening your vision? What if He is training you to discern what truly belongs to Him and what is merely a distraction? I have learned that spiritual discernment, the inner radar that separates what is right from what is simply convenient, only develops when we choose to listen more than we speak. Silence is also a powerful filter against traps. How many times have you almost fallen into something that seemed perfect, but for some inexplicable reason, you decided to wait, and later discovered that decision was your salvation? That inexplicable reason is often the voice of God whispering in your spirit. But to hear that voice, you must lower the volume of ego, fear, and anxiety. Therefore, I want to propose something simple yet deeply transformative. For the next 7 days, before making any important decision, whether an investment, a career change, or even a difficult conversation, set aside 5 minutes to be silent and seek God's presence. Simply ask, Lord, is this your direction? Then listen. Notice what you feel. See if there's peace or restlessness. Peace is one of the clearest signs God gives us to move forward. Restlessness, even if disguised as excitement, is a warning to stop. I can assure you, when you learn to respect silence and put it at the service of your connection with God, your decisions become more precise, your mistakes fewer, and your journey lighter. Because thriving is not about arriving first, it's about arriving whole. The people you walk with determine the speed and direction of your life far more than you imagine. I realized this by closely observing leaders, entrepreneurs, and influential figures who seemed unbeatable, but whose empires fell from within because they were surrounded by the wrong people. It is easy to believe that willpower and discipline alone are enough to succeed, but the truth is that those who influence you can lead you down the path of prosperity or onto a shortcut to destruction. I myself have walked alongside highly intelligent and persuasive people who, if I had blindly followed, would have led me to decisions contrary to my values and compromised not only my career but also my peace. When I put God first, I noticed something curious. My connections began to change. Some friendships faded without much explanation, promising partnerships broke apart, and doors that seemed perfect simply closed. At the time, I admit it hurt. But looking back, I understand it was protection, not loss. When God is at the center, you start to feel a subtle discomfort around certain people. It is not prejudice, it is discernment. It is as if something inside you says, be careful, this path is not for you. And if you ignore this warning, sooner or later, the cost will be high. I remember a highly respected investor I met, admired in the market for his aggressive strategies. He invited me to a grand project that seemed a unique opportunity to everyone. But in prayer, I felt a restlessness that would not go away. I declined, and months later, that project became the target of fraud investigations. This was one of many times I realized that prosperity is also protection. The Bible says that bad company corrupts good morals, and I add, bad company corrupts decisions, vision, and even courage. The influence of negative, envious, or purposeless people contaminates the mind, weakens motivation, and distorts risk perception. It is like carrying an extra weight every day without realizing it, until you become exhausted and stop moving forward. Think for a moment, who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? Do they encourage your growth or feed your fears? Do they bring you closer to God or, even subtly, pull you away from Him? Often, it is not a lack of faith or talent that paralyzes someone, but the invisible burden of walking with those they should not. God loves you so much that sometimes He Himself will break connections you would not have the courage to end. This can happen through unexpected conflicts, sudden changes, or seemingly reasonless distancing. And if He allows it, it is because He is freeing you from something that could cost much more in the future than you imagine. Not every open door is a blessing. Some are traps disguised as opportunities. When you learn to consult God before making alliances, you begin to notice signs that previously went unnoticed: the absence of peace when thinking about closing a deal, small inconsistencies in someone's speech, situations that seem to demand excessive haste in deciding. All of these are warnings. That is why I developed a habit that transformed my choices. Before any decision involving other people, be it a professional partnership, or relationship, or even choosing an environment to frequent, I pray and ask, does this bring me closer to God or pull me away from Him? If the answer is that it pulls me away, no matter how promising it may seem to human eyes, I refuse. I have lost profitable deals and important events by following this principle, but I have never lost my peace, and that is a currency without price. I want you to understand, the right alliances accelerate your journey, the wrong ones keep you stuck or drag you backward. If today you feel stagnant, maybe the problem is not in your faith, talent, or effort but in the people you have shared the path with. And if you need to cut ties to preserve your purpose, do so with courage. Sometimes the pain of the cut saves you from the pain of collapse. If there is one thing I want you to take from this, it is that putting God first changes everything: your decisions, your alliances, your focus, and even how you handle difficulties. This is the foundation that supports everything else. And if today you have understood this, you have already taken a huge step toward a more aligned, protected, and prosperous life. If you want to continue progressing on your journey and take another step forward in your growth of wisdom, click on the next video that is appearing on your screen. In it, you will become 1% better than you are now and come even closer to the life that God has planned for you. Thank you for being here with me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.